We're going to, I think we're going to get started. I mean, people are going to be arriving, but what a wonderful way it is to end what I think has been an extraordinary conference. And I just want to begin by thanking Jakub and the Forum 2000 team for just doing a splendid job. And this is becoming a more and more important international forum to discuss the problems of the world. And we're just incredibly fortunate as one of the concluding sessions of this conference to have with us, two heroes of the struggle a long time ago. 35 years ago was what it was won, but it was almost 40 years ago when Lech Wałęsa jumped over a wall and changed history. I don't think you could do the jumping today, but I think you have the spiritual and intellectual energy still to think about not only the triumphs of the past, but also the challenges of the present and the future. And Iveta Radičová was, actually the only woman leader of the Velvet Revolution. And she, was the spokesperson for the Public Against Violence in Slovakia. And then, of course, became prime minister, and I'm sitting across from Mr. President of Poland. So we really have with us today two great heroes of that period. And the question that is posed in the program is, the contrast between the world in 1989 and the world today, and it raises the question of, do we have enough solidarity today because the problems are so serious? And I begin by quoting from a report, a bipartisan report that was issued by the Congress, a report of a Commission on National Defense Strategy formed by both Republicans and Democrats in the Armed Services Committee of the House and the Senate in the U.S. And the report, the first sentence of the report really sums up the worries that a lot of us have, which is that the threats that the United States, and it's not just the United States, but this is a U.S. report, faces are the most serious and most challenging the nation has encountered since 1945 and include the potential for near-term major war. And it notes that, over the, since Putin and Xi signed that joint no limits strategic partnership in February of 2022, Iran and North Korea have now joined this foursome now of autocrats, of dictators. And the report says that this new alignment creates a real risk, if not a likelihood, that a conflict anywhere could become a multi-theater global war. We're in a very, very dangerous period, which many people have compared to the 1930s when the Axis powers were uniting and the West was unprepared. The report warns that the U.S. was prepared for this kind of a situation during the Cold War, but it's not prepared today, and I think that probably speaks for the West more generally. So my question to begin our discussion today, Mr. President, Lech, is how is it different today in your view? And if indeed it's as serious as I've described the problem, what needs to be done?
Zrozumieć czasy, w których przyszło nam żyć.
We need to understand the times that we live in.
Pan wcześniej zapytał, czy on przeskoczył przez płot w dzisiejszych warunkach.
You asked me whether I'd be able to jump over the fence today in current conditions.
Tak, proszę pana, przeskoczyłbym.
I would jump, yes.
Tylko wtedy o co innego chodziło.
But we were fighting a different fight then.
Wtedy komunizm wyczerpał swoje możliwości, hamował rozwój świata.
Communism was running out of its potential and capacity, and it was actually hindering the development of the world.
Technologia, którą zbudowaliśmy, nie mieściła się w tych państwach, w krajach, wymagała powiększenia struktur.
And the technologies that we were able to build then were when we were not able to keep it within the limits of the national borders. These technologies were striving and trying to get out.
Przeskakiwałem po to, by zburzyć stary porządek świata.
I jumped then in order to destroy the world order.
Ale po to, by zbudować nowy porządek świata.
But not only to destroy the previous order, but also to instigate and to trigger the development of the new world order.
I też dziś mam swoją wizję świata.
And also today I do have my very own vision of the world.
Gdyby świat się zgodził, to bym zaproponował i bym przeskoczył i budować zaczął.
And if the world was willing to accept it and welcoming, I would not hesitate a minute and would jump over the fence again.
Na razie moje słowa nie trafiają.
But now so far I've had the feeling that my words were not being heard.
A więc i moja waga, to jest przeskakiwać nie ma sensu.
And when you look at how much I weigh, I feel like jumping over the fence doesn't make much sense for now.
Ale pan zadał później pytanie.
But then you had another question.
Proszę pana, jak już dałem wstęp, rozwój techniczny od naszego pokolenia wymaga, musicie powiększyć struktury.
So coming back to your second question, and I already mentioned this in my introduction, the development of technology requires from our generation to increase and grow structures.
Zauważcie, że przed waszym pokoleniem i przed rozwojem świata już był taki rozwój na tym świecie, a nawet wyższy.
And please do note that even before the time of your generation, we witnessed a similar development of technology even larger than this.
Nawet piramidy budowano, których my dziś byśmy nie zbudowali.
I think about pyramids that we would not be able to actually erect these days.
A więc my dochodzimy dopiero teraz do ich wysokości rozwoju.
So I do feel that we are only now getting closer to the level of development of the generations that were here before us.
I oni zginęli, nie wiemy jak to się stało.
And these people are gone. They disappeared, vanished. We don't know what happened to them.
Nasze pokolenie może zauważyć, dlaczego oni zginęli.
And maybe it is a task for our generation to think about why these very well developed generations vanished.
Mamy podobne wyzwania, jak oni mieli.
And I do believe that the challenges they faced then are quite similar to what we are faced with today.
Zbudowali technologie i niebezpieczeństwa, na które nie panowali w tym zorganizowaniu.
They came up and built and developed technologies, and they were not ready to actually tame them, to use them, and they were not prepared for the risks that they entailed.
W paru tematach powinni oni, jak my, powinniśmy przejść na zarządzanie kontynentalne, a nawet globalne.
I do believe that what would have saved them then and what would save us now is if we actually delegated the management in certain areas and issues to a global organization or an international organization.
Oni tego nie zrobili, my prawdopodobnie nie zrobimy.
They failed to do so, and I'm afraid that we won't do that either.
Będziemy rozwijać się w kłótliwej atmosferze.
So we will be trying to grow in the atmosphere of conflict.
Rosja, Chiny,
Russia, China, Arabia,
różne religie,
different religions.
wrogo ustawione.
They're all in conflict, enemies.
I w taki sposób zginiemy.
And this is why we are doomed, in my
I
perspective.
dla mnie nie ma pytania, czy przejść na zarządzanie kontynentalne i globalne.
And in my opinion, the only way out is if we delegate certain issues to the continental or global management.
Jest pytanie tylko, jak tego dokonać.
And now the question arises, how?
Amen.
Amen. That's it.
Well, I can tell you that if you propose that in the United States, it would not be well received. They don't like.
Mówiłem panu, że zburzyliśmy stary porządek świata.
I mentioned that we managed to destroy the old world order.
A jednocześnie pokazaliśmy, jak należy walczyć i zwyciężać.
And we did show how you should fight and how you can win.
Zastosowaliśmy nowe metody walki.
these were new methods how we fought.
Mieliśmy gorszą sytuację, jak dzisiaj jest Ukraino-Rosja.
And I do believe that the situation we were in was worse than what we see today in the Ukrainian and Russian
Bo
conflict.
był Układ Warszawski, Związek Radziecki.
There was the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet Union.
Jak pięknie wygraliśmy.
And look at how wonderfully we managed to overcome it.
Gdybyśmy tak walczyli, jak dzisiaj walczylibyśmy, przegrali.
If we applied the same strategies today, I'm afraid we would lose.
Nikt by nas nie poparł.
Nobody would support us.
A frontalnie walka była bezsenna. Nie miała szans.
And we would always fail in the open fight, in open
Dzisiejszymi
war.
metodami, jeśli nawet pomożemy wyciężyć Ukrainie,
If even we use our method and help Ukraine prevail,
Rosja za 10 lat się podniesie i nasze wnuki będą musiały znów walczyć.
in 10 years' time, Russia will come back again stronger and our grandchildren will have to face it.
Sztuka nie polega pokonać kogoś i zostawić go wrogiem.
So it is not about actually winning over somebody and making them our enemy.
Pokonać go i przyjacielem zostać.
The trick is to win and have a friend in the person that we won over.
I tego my wtedy dokonaliśmy.
And this is what we managed to do then.
A ja mimo wszystko byłem przyjacielem Rosji.
And I remained a friend to Russia despite everything.
Jak zabrałem się za Putina, no to straciłem przyjaźń.
And when I started poking at Putin, the friendship was gone, obviously.
You were poking him.
Powiedziałem, jak należy walczyć.
Because I said how you should fight.
Powiedziałem, jak należy rozmawiać z Putinem.
I was actually telling people how they should approach Putin, how they should talk to Putin.
Zatem propozycję trafną.
And I believe my ideas were apt and
Medvedev wyznaczył $5 milionów za moją głowę.
to the point.
Medvedev, nie.
And as the response, Mr. Medvedev proposed a $5 million reward for my head.
Jak wam powtórzę koncepcję, to będzie 10 milionów za moją głowę.
And if I repeat what I said then today, I'm afraid the reward will grow to $10 million.
Well, let me just turn to Iveta now. Iveta, I know that you feel that we have just faced a million problems, both internal and external, which I may invite you to talk about. But let me just sort of say, I've read some stuff that I wrote back then, and I confess I was too hopeful. I saw the world being liberated, and I thought the technology would just continue the liberation. I realize now that there were a lot of things I didn't understand. Were we too hopeful? Were you too hopeful? Or did you see back then the kind of problems we face today?
Hello to everybody. It's a pleasure for me to have a chance to discuss not easy issue, but life is not easy. We are living in really different circumstances and very deep and quick changes. This is crucial. If you put together all the changes, globalization, new technologies, demographic crisis, war, and climate change, and some smaller challenges connected with this, our system of institutions and structures have no chance in quick reaction. And I stress the word reaction. So our bureaucratic systems, institutional systems, are not proactive, neither adequately prepared to quickly, dynamically react to the changed situation. If you need, on the level of EU, 3 years to have new regulation for AI or for new technologies or social nets, they are where they are during 3 years? That your regulation is totally out of functioning. And we see it. Many new things were adopted, but without real effects. Very good example is GDPR. It's formal thing. It doesn't work at all. It was prepared in the time when the situation was different. So first gap and challenge is new kind of institutions which are capable and able and prepared to react to new dynamic of the changes. Second point, we are living warfare. And doesn't matter if I am talking about soft or hard version. Either hybrid and real war. During the warfare, we have to have a look on basic values of democracy. You cannot use the same instruments. If there is attack through information war on our part of the world, if you are labeled as major enemy of Russia, and they behave to you as to enemy, you cannot open your mind to all kind of disinformation they are producing. I put on the table crucial question, how to look and define the right for information and freedom of expression during war time, having in mind the risk of censorship, having in mind different governments, but having in mind mainly the citizen, because we cannot push whole responsibility on their arms to decide and to check and to verify. Third point, during the First World War, one very famous Slovak, co-founder of the first Czechoslovak Democratic Republic, Milan Rastislav Štefánik, and he was the Minister of War in that time, said, however thinks that others will win his freedom, that others will do it, is not worthy of it. We have to do it ourselves. If we wish to be free, if we wish to live in liberal democracy, we have to jump through the wall, to organize activities, and really our voice have to be heard. Have to be heard. And not wait, otherwise the end of the story is like Barabbas and Jesus when the crowd was deciding who is guilty, and they decided that the murderer will be free because they were loud. We cannot be silent. And last but not least, looking what our governments are doing. Each third government in EU have populist and autocrat political parties inside. Each third. Near 1/3 of votes for political parties in EU are populist and autocratic parties. But there are good examples. Look at Poland and the last elections in Poland. But another example, look at Slovakia and the result of last elections in Slovakia. Still, there are changes and potential for change. One example of solidarity from my own country, I have to mention it. When present government has decided not to support by weapons Ukraine, immediately citizens have created fundraising, and they really collected for the purchase of ammunition for Ukraine defenders during few days, 4.5 million euros. As activity of citizens. And in comparison with the countries with the compatible size of inhabitants, it was much more than other governments have given to the Czech initiation organized from Prague. Altogether in this fund to support Ukraine is 35 million euros and more than 300 donators, 300,000 donators. Look how citizens react. In other words, the major result of the change 1989 is strong civic society. And if we have such pillar, democracy is not dying. Democracy is here.
So the way to beat populism is through a strong civil society.
You have also positive side of populism.
Okay.
We used to use only negative symbols or label for populism, but Cicero has written good study on this. And with positive side of populism, you have to be near the citizens, you have to talk with their language. So don't forget positive side of populism. Our mistake is that sometimes ordinary people do not understand us. We have to change phrases to concrete way of life, to concrete everyday life.
Like you said, I want to give you to respond to that, but I also
zrozumieć czasy, w których przyszło nam żyć.
This is what I said initially today. We need to understand the times that we are now living in.
Więc zrozumieć to, co ja powiedziałem i pani powiedziała.
You need to understand what I'm saying and you should understand what Ms. Prime Minister
A to
is
się
saying.
sprowadza do prostych wniosków.
And these are very simple conclusions that I want to make.
Przyszło nam żyć, kiedy zmieniają się epoki ze względu na rozwój techniczny.
We are living at the time when eras are changing due to the technological developments.
Komunizm wyczerpał swoje możliwości.
Communism ran out of its capacities.
Znaleźliśmy się w takiej sytuacji. Epoka tamta, państwo kraj upadła.
So the situation is that the previous times are
Pojawiła
gone,
się epoka intelektu, informacji, globalizacji.
and IT era, globalization era is on.
A my jesteśmy po środku.
And we are somewhere in the middle.
Jedno padło, drugie nie powstało.
So the previous order is gone, but the new times has not been established in full.
I to jest epoka słowa, dyskusji, jak ten świat ma wyglądać po tamtym upadku.
And I feel like we're in the midst of discussion. This is the time of words when we have to decide what we want to build.
Prawie wszystkie zorganizowania, partia polityczna, demokracja, tamta nie pasuje do dzisiejszych czasów.
And I believe that all the organizations that we used to have, the parties and even democracy itself, does not fit the new structures and new times.
W tym pokoleniu musimy na nowo zdefiniować, co znaczy lewica.
And this generation is faced with the task of redefining the definition, for example, of
Co
what
znaczy
the
prawica?
left is, the right is,
Co znaczy demokracja?
what democracy is.
To, co pani zauważa, jak się zachowuje, co się dzieje w Polsce, we Francji, w tych wyborach ostatnich.
You mentioned the results of the elections in Poland, in France, in Slovakia.
To praktycznie mówili, nie wierzą ludzie w tą demokrację.
I think that it shows that people lost their faith in democracy.
Widzą wielkie mankamenty.
They see that it has a lot of shortcomings.
To, że chodzimy na wybory, to, że jakaś tam wolna prasa trochę jest, to żadna demokracja.
I don't think that we can speak of democracy only because we can go and throw a ballot or because we have some free media, free press.
Błyskawicznie musimy zastanowić się, co należy poprawić, by ludzie wrócili do demokracji.
I think that the most urgent task ahead of us now is to come up with ideas and think how to attract people back to democracy.
Ja zaproponowałem w tych warunkach, jako rewolucjonista zaproponowałem 3 rzeczy, które należy wpisać do programów demokratycznych.
I am a revolutionary, so these were my 3 revolutionary ideas that I think could form sort of a program of making democracy sexy again.
Pierwszy punkt. Z wyborów nie może być więcej jak 2 kadencje, nie dłużej jak 5 lat.
I believe that the winning parties cannot stay in the office for more than 2 terms, each term the maximum of 5 years.
To nie Putin, to nie Stalin. To nie Putin, to nie Stalin.
It's not about Putin or Stalin.
To system polityczny powoduje te nieszczęścia, które mamy dziś.
I think the real reason and the real our problems stem from the fact that our systems are built this way.
Gdyby Stalin czy Putin miał 2 kadencje, nie dłużej jak 5 lat, nigdy by takiej bandy nie zbudował.
So if Putin or Stalin could stay in the office only for 2 terms, they would never be able to build these terrible things
How do you
that
get a
happen.
totalitarian dictator to stay in office for 2 terms?
Co?
How do you get a totalitarian dictator to stay in office for 2 terms?
Bardzo prosto, słuchać metod w Solidarności, bardzo prosto.
It's a simple fix, I believe.
Nie walczyć
Simple.
czołgami, rakietami, tylko walczyć politycznie.
Don't use tanks or missiles, to use a political influence.
Gdybym ja walczył w tamtym stylu, to przecież nigdy bym nie zwyciężył.
I would have never won my fight if I used the same style then.
Świat wrócił do starych metod walki, dlatego przegra.
And the world still clings to the old methods of the fight. And this is why I think they will lose.
Zgłaszałem propozycję,
how do you
jak
stop-
należy
So these are
walczyć.
just my simple fixes, my ideas.
How do you stop Putin without supporting Ukraine?
Kiedy zaczęła się walka z Ukrainą, ja zgłosiłem 2 postulaty.
When the war broke out, I had 2 ideas.
Zabierzcie mnie na rozmowę z Putinem, ja będę prowadził rozmowę.
My first suggestion was, please take me to Putin, I'll talk to
No
him.
nie tak jak wy rozmawiacie z nim, co to jest?
And I wouldn't talk to him the way you are now discussing democracy.
Kolego Putin, ty mnie straszysz rakietami, atomem.
I would say, Mr. Putin, why are you threatening me with an atomic bomb?
Przestań się wygłupiać, ja ci pokażę, jakie ja mam zabawki.
I would say, just stop doing that, stop going crazy, I can show you my toys.
Nie wierzysz? Chodź, pojedziemy.
And if you don't believe I have any, come and see.
Nie masz żadnych szans.
You don't stand a chance.
Tylko ja nie chcę walczyć.
But I do not want to fight you,
Bo ty zginiesz i ja zginę.
because we will both die as a result.
Tak trzeba rozmawiać.
I think this is how you should talk
A
to
jeśli
him.
chodzi o metody walki,
And as far as the methods of fighting,
bardzo proste,
A simple
pokojowe.
fix again.
Proszę pana, on strzela, więc należy strzelajmy.
I think it should be peaceful. Of course, if he's shooting at you, you should shoot back.
Pokojowo proponuję
But you should start with some peaceful offerings.
spisywać wszystkich ludzi, Rosjan, którzy giną na wojnie dzisiaj.
You should take note of every single Russian citizen who died in the war.
Porobić gazetki i różne programy telewizyjne z tymi ludźmi.
And make leaflets and do some shows on TV showing these people,
I mówimy do Rosjan tak.
telling the Russians,
Nie chcemy z wami walczyć.
we don't want to fight you.
Chcemy wam pomóc.
We want to help you.
Nie wierzysz.
If
Zobacz,
you don't believe
gdzie ty
us,
mieszkasz. Zobacz gazetkę, tamką gazetkę.
your leaflets,
Zobacz,
buy
tam
the
w tej
newspaper,
gazetce jest napisane,
And you can see
tam są nazwiska.
the names.
Ty chodziłeś z nimi na piwko.
These are people
A
you
oni są już w
would
ziemi.
take out to a pub for 1 or 2
Nie wierzysz?
years.
Sprawdź.
And these are 6 feet
A
underground now. You don't believe
twojej
us? Check.
znajomej z góry, co mieszkała, 2 synów jest w ziemi.
And your neighbor from 2 stories above has 2 sons already
Jutro
6
Putin
feet under.
przyjdzie, żeby ciebie do wojska wziąć.
And tomorrow they will come and recruit
wanna-
you to the army, and you will die.
I want to get.
A ja ci proponuję życie.
And I'm offering you survival,
Co, nie
life.
uwierzy?
Do you
We
think they won't believe me?
Proszę pana.
We got 2 minutes, and I want to get to Iveta for a close. But I just want to say that you and Trump should sit together about how to talk to Putin, because he thinks he understands it. Maybe you'll work it out. I had a question that I was going to address to Lech, but I'm just going to address it to you, which is a deficit of leadership in the world today. Back then, we had Reagan, we had Pope John Paul II, we had Lane Kirkland in the AFL-CIO. You don't have that today. And I guess I want to conclude by maybe asking Iveta, is it possible that women can fill this leadership deficit? I know you would talk to me about the role of women. Is it possible? There's no Margaret Thatcher either, by the way.
Sorry to say it, ladies, but doesn't matter if it's a woman or man. What we really need is the ethics in politics. Because if you throw out morality from politics, not only politics is lost, but society will be lost. If the leaders are showing that lying is normal, if the leaders are showing that disinformation they are producing and their authors are those which everybody can use, if the democratic leaders are not able to communicate and have a dialogue, if democratic leaders are playing the game that they are doing sanctions against Russia and then use white horse and do the business with Russia to keep standard of living, to keep their power. If there are leaders which are prepared to shake the hand with the devil, if there are leaders which are really not the pattern how to behave, and if there are leaders who are not live the values they are asking you to live, you cannot believe them and trust.
Okay, that's wonderful. All right, but you got to be quick because we're over time.
Just you were asking about these people that we are missing now, these big names. Again, please remember what times we are living in. The communism ran out of its capacities. And many people noticed that. The people that you mentioned. And they were trying to make a change, make a difference. And all the people that you mentioned, these big names, they were doing something to make a difference in a different way. And sometimes it looked like there was this common understanding between them against the Soviet Union. But the truth was that, in fact, everybody was fed up with communism. And we were all using all our methods and everything that we had in our arsenal to change it. And today the situation is different. And we are only discussing what we are going to be faced with and what we should do. And there are very easy fixes for that. We need a few wise people. And you can give them 3 tasks to fulfill. Note down everything that cannot be fixed in the current state of play. Add the problems and challenges that are worrisome for you. That's number 1. That's number 2. Once you have the to-do list, decide what can be fixed globally and what needs to be fixed locally. That's number 2. And that's number 3. Once you have it ready, find the money and structures. And that's it. Everything is fixed, but you need to start doing it now.
We have a session on Tibet, which was supposed to start 3 minutes ago, and they only give us a half an hour. But this was terrific. I take it as the conclusion that we got to be proactive and anticipate problems, and we have to be ethical. And we haven't figured out how to deal with the alliance of autocracies, the 4 powers, the tyrants. But I guess if we act according to the values that you've expressed, we can maybe put together a coherent response to that. I want to thank everyone. I'm sorry the time is so short. They only gave us a half hour for this.